Welcome back, explorers of hidden truths. Today, we travel to the age of crusades and holy vows to the brotherhood that once ruled both the battlefield and the bank, the Knights Templar. Picture the 12th century Europe torn between faith and ambition. Among the dust of Jerusalem's roads, a group of warrior monks emerges, sworn to protect Christian pilgrims on their journey to the Holy Land. They were not mere swordsmen, they were visionaries of discipline and secrecy. Over time, their courage and order turned into influence, their vows of poverty into unimaginable power. The Templars built fortresses across continents and established one of the earliest financial networks, a medieval version of international banking. Kings trusted them with gold, nobles sought their protection, and even the Pope blessed their mission. Their white mantles, marked with the red cross, became a symbol of divine authority. But power has a way of drawing enemies. As centuries passed, admiration turned to suspicion. Whispers began of hidden rites, forbidden knowledge, and a treasure too vast to be seen by mortal eyes. When the French crown saw the Templars' wealth, greed replaced faith. On a single October morning in 1307, their downfall began, and with it, the legend of a treasure that vanished from history. Was it gold buried beneath cathedrals? Sacred relics spirited away to distant lands? Or knowledge that could rewrite faith itself? The story of the Templars is not just about what they guarded, it is about how mystery survives when truth is buried. As the Templars grew in reputation, so did their riches, though not by conquest, but by trust. Nobles and kings across Europe began donating lands, castles, and estates, believing that supporting the Templars secured favour in heaven. Their properties stretched from England to the Holy Land, turning the order into one of the largest landowners of the medieval world. But their true genius lay not in hoarding gold, but in reinventing how money moved. When pilgrims journeyed to Jerusalem, carrying coins across dangerous territories was a death wish. The Templars offered a safer way. Deposit your wealth at one temple in Europe, receive a coded document, and withdraw the same amount once you reached the Holy Land. In essence, they created one of history's first banking systems centuries before modern banks existed. Through this network, the Templars handled funds for kings, financed wars, and even issued loans to monarchs. Their strongholds doubled as vaults, and their clerks were early accountants. For a time, they were untouchable, an order of monks who could influence the rise and fall of kingdoms with ink and seal alone. Yet, wealth brings danger in its wake. The Templars' mastery of finance blurred the line between holiness and power, between divine mission and economic empire. Behind the sacred cross, numbers and secrets began to accumulate, and in the corridors of kings, envy quietly sharpened its blade, waiting for the right moment to strike. By the dawn of the 14th century, the Templars had become both powerful and politically dangerous. Their influence reached into every major court of Europe, and their financial systems even sustained royal economies. But one King Philip IV of France found himself deeply in debt to them. His wars had drained his treasury, and the Templars, once his allies, had become creditors he could never repay. Desperation breeds schemes. Philip saw in the Templars not just a threat, but an opportunity. On Friday, October 13, 1307, he ordered a sweeping arrest across France. At dawn, Templar knights were seized, their commanderies raided, their wealth confiscated. The charge was heresy, a grave accusation in a time when faith ruled all judgment. The king claimed they denied Christ, practiced secret rituals, and worshipped strange idols. The church, caught off guard, hesitated, but under pressure and fear, Pope Clement V eventually sanctioned the trials. Many Templars were tortured into confession, their words twisted into proof. Grand Master Jacques de Molay, once among Europe's most respected men, was burned at the stake in 1314, his final cry said to curse both king and pope. It was the end of the order, at least in name. Yet, as their strongholds fell and their leaders perished, one question remained. Where had their vast wealth gone? Not a single vault of gold was ever found. And so, the fall of the Templars became the beginning of a legend, one written, not in ink, but in silence and smoke. When the flames consumed the Templars' fate, their treasure seemed to vanish with them. France expected vaults of gold, jeweled relics, and sacred artifacts. Yet every search turned up empty. The royal agents who stormed Templar fortresses found only dust, papers, and silence. It was as if the wealth of centuries had dissolved overnight. Rumours spread fast. Some whispered that the Templars had seen the betrayal coming, that fleets quietly sailed from La Rochelle, their ships heavy with chests of gold bound for Scotland or beyond. Others believed secret tunnels beneath Paris or Chartres hid the riches, guarded by loyal knights who vanished into obscurity. Even the Vatican archives were suspected of holding part of the mystery, buried among unmarked scrolls and sealed chambers. The absence of proof only deepened the allure. Historians argue that much of the treasure may have been intangible bonds, deeds, and coded promissory notes, not piles of metal. But to the public imagination, that explanation felt too dry. People needed the story to live. Golden chests glittering in candlelight, secret maps, underground vaults that hum with divine energy. And so, what began as a political purge became a myth that outlived every king involved. The treasure's disappearance was not just a loss of gold, it was the creation of a mystery that still outshines any fortune ever counted. Centuries of searching have brought nothing but speculation. Excavations in France, Portugal, and Jerusalem uncovered remnants of Templar life armour, coins, carved crosses, but never the mythical hoard that legends promised. Archives from the 1300s mention seized lands and inventories, yet none list gold or relics of extraordinary value. The truth, buried under layers of politics and faith, has stayed just beyond reach. Historians point out a simple, sobering fact. If such a treasure existed, it would have required an army to move and protect. No record, no merchant account, no traveller's chronicle ever mentions such a movement. The silence of history may be its most convincing answer. Still, mystery has its own gravity. The lack of evidence does not extinguish belief. It feeds it. From secret societies claiming descent from Templar survivors to whispered theories about coded manuscripts, the treasure lives on as a question no one can quite close. Maybe that is why the legend endures. Proof is finite. It ends the story. But doubt, when paired with hope, keeps the torch burning. Somewhere between the lines of history and imagination, the Templar treasure survives, not as buried gold, but as the glitter that appears when truth refuses to settle. Among the earliest whispers, Paris holds a special place. The city was once the beating heart of the Templar network, home to their Grand Temple, a fortified compound near today's Marais district. Beneath its stone halls stretched a maze of cellars and passageways, some connected to older Roman tunnels. When the arrests began, witnesses reported that carts rolled in and out of the temple through the night, guarded by silent riders in white mantles. After that night, the treasure was never seen again. Over the centuries, builders and diggers claimed to stumble upon sealed chambers under Paris, filled with strange markings or fragments of Templar symbols. None were verified. Yet each story added another layer to the myth. In the 18th and 19th centuries, as the city expanded, many believed Napoleon's engineers, or even Freemasons, rediscovered parts of the lost hoard, but again, no proof surfaced. Modern historians dismiss most of these claims as urban legend. Still, the thought of gold resting beneath Parisian cobblestones, hidden under cafes and apartment blocks, captures something deeper than greed. It is the idea that history itself is buried below our feet, quietly watching as the world above forgets. And every time a new subway tunnel is dug, someone inevitably wonders, what if the Templars' secret lies just one wall deeper? When France turned against them, the Templars had few safe havens left. But across the Channel, Scotland stood apart, excommunicated at the time, defiant toward papal authority, and ruled by Robert the Bruce, a king who had no reason to fear the Pope or the French crown. Some legends say surviving Templars fled there, bringing with them not only relics and documents, but the heart of their fortune. According to the story, they were welcomed into Scottish brotherhoods and merged with local knights, laying the roots for what later became Masonic traditions. In the shadow of Rosslyn Chapel, built centuries later, but rich with carved symbols of Templar law believers, claim signs of their presence remain. Angels, crosses, and coded patterns etched into the stone seem to whisper secrets no scholar has fully translated. No official records confirm this migration, yet the tale persists. The idea of the Templars crossing stormy seas with sacred cargo, finding refuge in misty highlands, fits perfectly with the mix of faith and exile that defines their legend. Perhaps it was not the treasure they saved, but themselves and the ideals they carried, knowledge, secrecy, and resistance to power. In that sense, Scotland became more than a hiding place. It was a second chance for the myth to endure. As centuries passed, the legend grew bolder and the ocean wider. By the 18th century, explorers and storytellers began linking the lost Templar fortune to a remote island off the coast of Nova Scotia, Canada, Oak Island. Local folklore told of strange pits, hidden tunnels, and wooden platforms buried deep underground. When early diggers found fragments of tools and stones marked with odd carvings, the myth found new fuel. Supporters of the theory claim that Templar ships, fleeing Europe's persecution, may have sailed west long before Columbus. With their navigational skill and maritime resources, it was not impossible. Some say they carried sacred relics, perhaps the Holy Grail or the Ark of the Covenant, and buried them beneath layers of traps to ensure no one would ever retrieve them without understanding their purpose. Oak Island's money pit, as it came to be called, has since swallowed fortunes, lives, and centuries of obsession. From 1700s adventurers to modern TV crews, the search never truly stops. Nothing definitive has been found, yet the idea refuses to die. Maybe it is not the gold that calls people there, but the promise that somewhere beneath that windswept soil lies proof the Templars did not vanish. They simply sailed beyond the edge of history. The Atlantic becomes, in this telling, both a grave and a bridge, where faith, secrecy, and legend meet in the fog. Not every treasure shines. Some believe what the Templars guarded was not measured in weight, but in wisdom manuscripts, relics, or truths that could shift the foundations of belief itself. To these thinkers, the Templars were not mere bankers or warriors, but custodians of forbidden knowledge gathered during their time in the Holy Land. They were said to have excavated beneath the ruins of Solomon's Temple, where ancient scrolls or relics from early Christianity might have been hidden. Perhaps they uncovered texts that challenged accepted doctrine, or artifacts linking to the earliest days of the Church. Others imagine the Templars preserving mystical traditions, geometry, alchemy, or sacred symbology that would later echo through the Renaissance and the birth of secret societies. If so, the treasure they protected was not meant for kings or popes, but for the few who could read its meaning. Knowledge, after all, can be more dangerous than gold. It can outlast fire, exile, and time. This idea reshapes the Templar legend entirely. The lost treasure becomes not something to be found, but something already among us. Fragments of wisdom disguised in art, architecture, and ritual. It suggests the Templars succeeded in their greatest mission to hide truth in plain sight, where only the patient and the curious might ever notice. As myth deepened, the treasure's form became more symbolic, less about coins, more about revelation. Some writers claim the Templars discovered the Holy Grail itself during their time in Jerusalem, not a cup of silver, but a vessel of spiritual truth. Depending on who tells the story, the Grail is either a sacred relic carrying divine power or a metaphor for enlightenment the Church could never control. Others tie the Templars to secret lineages, suggesting they safeguarded proof of a hidden royal bloodline descending from Jesus and Mary Magdalene, a theory that still fuels novels, films, and endless debate. To believers, this would explain why the order was erased so thoroughly. Their secret threatened the very core of medieval faith and monarchy. Still others whisper that the Templars preserved lost scriptures, gospels, excluded from the Bible, or texts from ancient civilizations that blended science, mysticism, and prophecy. In each theory, the treasure becomes less material and more transcendent, a bridge between divine and human knowledge. Whether seen as relic, bloodline, or revelation, these interpretations share one thread. the belief that the Templars carried something too powerful to be owned, something that had to be hidden, not for greed but to protect the world from what it might do with the truth. For all the centuries of digging, mapping, and decoding, the earth remains quiet. Archaeologists have uncovered remnants of Templar commanderies' coins, weapons, carved stones, but nothing that fits the scale or myth of a lost hoard. Each discovery that captures headlines soon fades into the usual pattern: hopeful beginnings, disappointing ends. The Church's own records, though vast, reveal no secret transfers or missing relics. France's royal ledgers list seized estates and confiscated debts, not hidden wealth. Even the supposed sites of refuge, Scotland, Portugal, Oak Island, yield more imagination than fact. The Templar story survives mostly in the spaces where evidence runs out. Some scholars see this as proof that the treasure never existed in the first place, that the myth was born from envy, politics, and the human habit of filling silence with wonder. Others argue the lack of proof is the clue, that the order hid its legacy too well. Its knowledge passed through symbols and secret groups rather than chests of gold. In the end, absence becomes its own artifact. The mystery remains unsolved, not because it is waiting for discovery, but because it feeds on the very act of searching. Each empty vault, each dead end, renews the legend, whispering that maybe the real treasure was never meant to be found. The story of the Templar treasure endures because it speaks to something older than history, our hunger for what is hidden. Every generation reshapes the legend to mirror its own fears and desires. Medieval peasants imagined holy relics that could save souls. Victorians dreamed of secret societies guarding divine truths, and modern seekers chase encrypted maps and forgotten codes. Each retelling reveals less about the Templars and more about us. We want to believe that some corner of the world still holds wonder, that beneath the noise of politics and progress, mystery survives. The Templar treasure gives that longing a name. Whether buried under Paris or floating somewhere off Nova Scotia, it invites us to keep looking, to imagine that faith, courage, and knowledge once combined to guard something worth dying for. Perhaps that is why, 7 centuries later, the Templars refuse to fade. Their symbol, the Red Cross, on white, still flickers in books, films, and conspiracies, a mark of something sacred yet unreachable. In a way, they achieved immortality, not through gold, but through curiosity itself. The treasure, if it ever existed, may have turned to dust long ago. But the idea that truth can be hidden, that light can survive in secret, remains priceless. And that, maybe, is the only treasure the world will never lose. And so, the legend of the Knights Templar stands, where history and myth blur, half buried in archives, half alive in imagination. Whether they were guardians of divine relics, or simply men undone by greed and politics, their story endures because it reminds us that truth is rarely straightforward. Sometimes it hides behind faith, sometimes behind fear, and sometimes it is hidden because we are not ready to see it. Thank you for joining me on this journey through one of history's most enduring mysteries. If you enjoyed exploring the secrets of the Templars and their lost treasure, do not forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts below. What do you think they were truly protecting? Until next time, keep your curiosity sharp and your mind open. History still has plenty of secrets left to whisper.